Welcome to all our listeners. Welcome to 6CWF. Welcome to the VIP Productions Episode 2. With myself, Robert, and the man with the pencil, the booker himself, the guy who determines your fate and wonders what on earth you do with your time, because all of his is spent wondering that. Mr. JJ Johnson.
Morning, everybody.
How are we doing this week then, JJ?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yeah, good. Kind of having a little bit of downtime now that the pay-per-view's finished and thinking about what's to come next for the old Fed. Yeah, how about yourself? All good?
Yeah, I've been wondering about like the pay-per-view myself. I mean, we've recently Beachfront Brawl 11 is in the books. We're going to be discussing that today. We'll be discussing what's coming up in 1 week's time for us. We've also got our usual regular batch of questions, and well, we're just going to have a natter for a bit, aren't we?
Yeah, like last time, let's see how long we can stretch this one out for.
How long our voices can hold out.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I couldn't talk for about 3 days after last time, so.
But yeah, this is gonna be a fun time as per usual. And since we've got Beachfront Brawl on the minds, why don't we just have a quick run through the results? I mean, start off with the pre-show. I mean, one of our newest people, Diego Romero. This was an interesting day. This is an interesting match for him.
Yeah, look, so this guy that we've got, Jeff. My name's Jeff, right? From he's an American bloke. Basically, after I think we talked on the last podcast and we talked about trying to get some new people, I went on to all these different sites and started just kind of advertising. I went to some of the old sites that we used to go on, like Rough Cut and that. I don't even know, half of them don't exist or they've turned into something else. And then I've gone on to Reddit, which I've never used before, but I used that to advertise.
You've never used Reddit before, really?
No, I didn't even know what it was all about, but I did. Whenever I type anything in on Google, it always brings stuff up for Reddit. So I thought, right, let's have a look on there. And that's where we got Jeff. And we've also got the guy that does Angus Plague, but we'll move on to him. So yeah, with Jeff, he's been on holiday or vacation, as he said to me in his PM that he sent, which is why he didn't get a promo for the pay-per-view, which was a shame because his first one was really good.
Yeah, I agree. That one was really solid. Like I say, I mean, here he is opening the pre-show match, and I've just got to say, looking through it, I think, where is it? Yeah, I mean, he beats former champion in, remind me.
Yeah, Alexander Altair, who I think is pretty much, I mean, that was Paul Mack's character. He's pretty much Agent fucking 47 from Hitman games.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he beats Altair, I'd say pretty convincingly. But the main story of it is the aftermath.
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously we're building into something, which kind of, again, stuff falls into my lap. Kind of lucky with certain things, but so we've got another person who wants to bring in a character, and when I put them side by side, the two character sheets, I thought this could line up for a pretty interesting story that we've not really done kind of before. So that's kind of what we're working into without giving too much away. The idea is that these vignettes that are playing, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, it is how you say vignette.
Yeah. So the fella in them, obviously, as you can kind of work out, is something to do with Romero's past that he's kind of running from, which will be kind of interesting because I don't think very often we've done a story where two characters kind of come in at the same time, but they know one another. So we've kind of got a backstory to build off before it's even begun.
Yeah, my initial thought of this was literally, okay, did you just bring in La Parka? Just because,
all right, yeah.
The skull face. I'm thinking, hang on, did you watch Triple Mania?
No, did you know what? I've seen some clips of it.
You know exactly what I mean then.
Yeah, and it's the thing is that obviously we've been going a long time. Like I said, this is 17 years, and there, again, not giving too much away, but if people know like deep down the history, like I said before, I'm dead geeky with it, so I know quite a lot. There are Easter eggs, kind of whatever you want to call it, for this character. It may or may not be somebody who's already been in the Fed before.
Okay. Well, like I say, when I just read through that, it's like, okay, hang on, wait, did you seriously just bring in La Parker? Because it's just like, okay, let's have some. I just thought, yeah, I thought you'd have some fun with it.
Well, yeah, well, this is. Thing is, it does actually genuinely. I'm quite invested in it because I don't think we've never done kind of like a Mexican sort of style feud before, and I don't think we've ever had the characters to do it. And it is really interesting. Like, I'm a big fan of that kind of thing. I think I've spoke before about I really loved the Lucha Underground series, which was I thought fantastic and kind of learned a lot about how they portray characters. So yeah, I'm excited to do something a bit different.
I must admit, I've not watched Lucha Underground personally. My initial thought is basically, are you doing a Cara v Cara Noir from
Yeah, so
2010?
yeah, potentially, yeah. I mean, I would recommend Lucha Underground to anybody if you could. Depends what you're into. You know, it's very storyline driven. In terms of it's like a TV show. It's not like watching a wrestling show, so to speak. It's more like an entertaining drama. But
Okay.
yeah, I was kind of taken with how they do things and can make it really interesting. So, well, yeah, we'll see. But it's going to pick up from the next show, that story.
Yeah, understandably. And then looking into the first bout, we have Dicey Riley coming in as champion versus Perfect Jack with Angus Plague.
Yeah.
On a personal question related to Edward?
No, right. So this fella, I'm not really sure why he hasn't signed up to the site. He keeps messaging me on Reddit. He sent me the role play that I posted during Beachfront Brawl and the character sheet, but I just don't seem to be able to get him, for whatever reason, signed up on the site.
Okay.
I don't know why. You know, I'm not really sure because I don't think he's somebody else. Like, and he doesn't want his identity to be known. I'm pretty confident he's a completely different person to anyone we've ever known. But for whatever reason, he seems to be sending me stuff to post on his behalf, which is, I mean, I don't mind, but it just doesn't get him involved in the community, does it? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that, but it's their decision. If they want to do that, I'd say that's fine by me. But like, see,
yeah, go on, mate.
It's just a case of, I get where you're coming from as well. With basically, okay, it's like, yeah, come say hi, make silly mistakes. I mean, yeah, it's all part of it. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I mean, again, yeah, absolutely. I'm not overly fussed. Like, if that's what he wants to do, and he's promoting Happy Days, like, and he seems like a good character, and he's put a lot of thought into it, and he's clearly used this character in other feds. But yeah, I mean, so hopefully he signs up at some point. But going back to that match, the opening match,
that was sorry, yeah, for the six. I forgot that. I've got to scroll back up because I was looking at the finish. For the where is it? The 16 European Championship.
Yeah,
I like that finish.
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty confident. We didn't actually, because I was so busy with the school holidays and with my daughter's birthday and stuff. I don't think I managed to get a prediction thread up this time to see what everybody thought was going to happen. But reading between the lines and people's reactions, it seemed that most really felt Dicey was going to win.
I must admit,
but sometimes you've just got to have. For me, obviously, I've got storylines planned and I know where things are heading. And Dicey's obviously been really good with that belt. And he was on 9 defenses, and obviously we've got that stipulation that if somebody gets 10, they get the million. And But I also think Jack has done some really good work. He's portraying a character, trying something different that he's never ever done before.
Yeah, Jack has been on quite a roll personally.
Yeah, it's not always easy to completely change up what you're doing. He's always kind of been like perfect Jack. He's like just a wrestler. He's one of the best wrestlers, but he's turned the character darker, and it's intrigued me, and I think he's done well with it. And I think the idea with that match was, one, sometimes it's good to have a shock result because I don't think a lot of people seen it coming. And you've got to have, but it's not a shock for shock's sake because, yeah, the idea behind it was Dicey looks strong,
Yeah,
despite
I'm just
losing.
reading. Put him in the figure 4 for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, so recently I'd rewatched. Do you remember the HBK Kurt Angle match at
Yes,
WrestleMania?
it's in brackets here.
Yeah. So, and like the end, I mean, that's one of my favorite matches anyway. I think it's a fantastic match, but the ending of it, Angle's got the ankle lock, and he got it. Honestly, I mean, I don't know if it's quite 5 minutes, but it's a long time. Like,
it's at least 90 seconds. He's got it in after HBK tries to escape, I think, twice.
yeah, and he's like, you can tell he doesn't want to tap out. And in the end, he's got absolutely no choice. And the idea with the Dicey, he obviously didn't tap, but he passed out. Was,
yeah,
you see these wrestling matches all the time where someone's in a submission, especially the figure 4, and they fall back on the shoulders, and the referee counts, and then they sit up like right at the last second. But I thought,
I know exactly the thing you mean.
yeah, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if they just didn't sit up? Like, it's not a finish. Personally, I don't know. Like, maybe they used to do it in the 70s or 80s, like in Flair's heyday, but I've never seen that happen.
I remember actually somebody doing it, not recently, like past 5 years or so. Like literally, they're in a figure 4, and it pins. Hang on, I know what it was. It was I think it was Miz, Barrett, and it was a triple threat. Barrett jumped on top of Miz while he was in the figure 4. Miz or the third guy, and he pinned him.
All right, yeah. So I can see that one because obviously you're locked in the submission, aren't you? And somebody takes advantage of it by jumping on top. But I didn't feel like I'd never seen somebody like pinned by pretty much passing out because they were in so much pain.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, I think the most notable example of that would be WrestleMania 13, Hart v Austin.
Yeah, and I toyed with the idea that we just have the referee wave it off, kind of. But I think I've done that a couple of times in the past, so I thought, let's try something different. It actually goes down as a pinfall. And again, I think I did it with like the live tweeting and stuff. It's not a reflection. I think this comes back onto one of the questions that was probably asked was about, it might have been Asa or Daniel Riley. One of them asked about what determines the results.
Trying to find that question now.
I think it might have been Asa. Did he say something about it used to be about promoing? Who, if you didn't promo, you didn't win or whatever.
I'm trying to find it. It's up here somewhere.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if you find it, but yeah, obviously promos do have an impact, like on the results, and they always will. But I think it's not always the only reason as to why a result might happen. Now, that might disgruntle some people. They might not like to hear that, but sometimes you've got to change up a storyline, like to make it interesting. So, for a storyline purpose, some people might have said, "Oh, they're looking at Dicey's promos, looking at Jack's promos," and some people might prefer Dicey's promos, so therefore think, "Oh, he's a definite nailed on to win." But again, that's subjective as well because
sometimes
I think Jack's doing good stuff.
And sometimes you've got to go with the person who said nothing to progress the story.
Yeah, exactly. And again, as I've tried to get across from when we restarted last year, it isn't 6WF or 6CW of 2010. Like, you have to take on board the fact that not everybody can promo all the time. Like, we've all got real shit to do. Like, we've all got families and jobs and other things. And if, say, you promoted 3 weeks out of 4, but then you missed the pay-per-view, I can't just think to myself, oh, well, they didn't promo for the pay-per-view, so they're not winning. If you did great work for 3 weeks before that, I think it has to be an overall picture of, and Dicey's always good. Dicey's always brilliant, like, no matter what. And I could have easily had him retain. But for me, obviously, then I'm looking ahead. I'm the one that knows what I've got planned. So I know.
You know where the story goes, and you have to follow that story. But I think this is the question you're on about. This is one Daniel Riley.
Yeah.
How often do promos affect feuds? I mean, the examples he states are Jeff Steele and Asa, who didn't think would end up becoming involved in the storyline. But did the promos change things, or was it always the plan?
Yeah, so I've seen them a couple of comments between Riley and Asa, who obviously have been embroiled in this feud that's ended. It's ended now, hasn't it? Obviously at the pay-per-view for now. I mean, I'm not saying they won't, but yeah, their promos did kind of affect that storyline because we kind of threw them together. I think whatever the last pay-per-view or the one before that, probably coming out of Night of Glory, to be honest with you. I think I was booked in a match with Riley, and he went over and he was doing great work, and he obviously has been doing great work for quite some time. But they ended up sort of going back and forth a couple of times with their promos, and I liked what they were doing. It was really good. It was good stuff. So yeah, that did affect it. I don't know I can't remember what I had planned for either of them. But it wasn't that.
Was it just a case of this is too good to ignore?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously they were brilliant, and they have been. Just bear with me for a second, mate. I've just got a delivery at my door.
Sure. While JG's away, I can start having a look at the next match, which was the 6CWF Extreme Championship. Apologies for the background noise. That is him picking up a parcel. This is the 6CWF Extreme Championship. Jeff Steele coming in as champion with Jimmy Phillips and Mike Masters in a triple threat match.
I'm here. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just introducing the second match, the Extreme Championship match.
Right.
This was brutal.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to do. Let's be honest. Again, Jeff's been smashing it for a long time. I really like Jeff. And Gazzy brought Jimmy Phillips back, but he's been busy at work, so it wasn't time for a title change for that.
To be honest, with Jeff going as he is, I couldn't see him losing this.
And
the brutality of it all. It's like, okay, what horror film did you watch?
Yeah, well, I think there's the difference. That's the difference probably between the Dicey match and the, where we had the title change, and it might have been a bit of a shock, but I think there was still reasoning behind it. I think having Steele lose, don't get me wrong, I mean, Cult of Personality, who does Mike Masters, he's intermittent with his promos, but when he promos, he's good. And I like what he does, but I just, at the minute, kind of the story that we're building with Jeff is, obviously, he's the face of the Extreme division. and we're doing something. He's very much like in my head. I think we talked about it last time on the podcast. He's almost like a John Cena kind of figure.
You mean US title run John Cena or Reign of Terror John Cena?
What? Well, do you know? I don't even know if no, maybe not Reign of Terror. Maybe before, like sort of just winning the world title, kind of John Cena.
Okay.
When everyone liked him, and I think he had that I Quit match with JBL, and it was brutal.
Yeah.
And we got to see a bit of a different side to him. But also, I think John Cena sort of leading into maybe the Reign of Terror. When like them matches with Umaga were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see Jeff like that, but I think as I hinted at with the last podcast, with my sort of the fumbled idea where I wanted him to be the leader of Genesis, I think it's still quite interesting to explore with Steel, and I think that's what we're doing at the minute. That just for him to have that edge to him, which is nice. I think it makes it. I don't know. I just like to have it so you can't 100% guess what's going to happen. He's a good guy. The fans love him. But when he's in them extreme environments, he's unpredictable.
Yeah. Personally, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here. The Jeff Steele I'm seeing, it's a case of I think this is US title John Cena, where basically every match he has, he makes both the people, but any challenger look damn good against him.
Oh, yeah, obviously I'll give you that. But I think that's Jeff. I think that's the character that we've tried to build, and he's built himself for quite some time. Is that he is the kind of go-to guy in terms of, even though I picture him like John Cena, obviously he's never had like a continued run of success he's only had one world championship, which might seem a bit mental, really, over the years. But he definitely is a character that brings out the best of other people. Because I think the way you can write for him is probably a bit John Cena-esque in terms of he can get his head kicked in, which he did at times in that match. And
but
obviously,
he's always still there. It's you can't count him out of anything. Even if you bury him alive, I'm half convinced he will dig himself out of the grave after the dirt's been put on him and somehow stop the pain.
Yeah, and this is what's quite interesting for me at the minute, and what we're doing with different characters, and you don't want them to all be the same. And I think with Jeff, I've exchanged a few messages with him about the character, and there is that element. We kind of are starting to push the boundaries. I'd say that title defense that he had at Beachfront Brawl was, I don't want to say gimme, because it wasn't a gimme, but it's a good one to kind of notch under his belt. But we kind of want to go further with what he can withstand, and then what he's willing probably to put other people through.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, there's so many options. I think there's some really great feuds in that Fed for him.
So maybe we'll be seeing more like Shades of Grey with Jeff in the future, or?
Well, potentially, because I think I've hinted at before, not with other people as well. I look at storylines that have happened in real life, like WWE or whatever, and I think it hasn't, and where I might think they haven't gone as far as they should. Similar with John Cena. Now, I'm not talking about, don't expect Jeff to have some sort of full-blown heel turn anytime soon, but I do think there were times when WWE had the chance to go darker with Cena without even turning him heel. Obviously, they had that fucking stupid storyline, the Embrace the Hate or whatever it was called.
With Kane.
And then it ended up being Eve, and I just think they completely fucking dropped the ball on that. he didn't have to be a full heel, I don't think, but it would have been, or even with Wade Barrett, like when they did the TLC match, when he pulled all them chairs and they all dropped on him.
Yeah, I remember the aftermath of that. It's like, yeah, it's just like it was 27 steel chairs. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah, and I just think they could have had a bit of an edge, to Cena's character. I think they had the opportunity again when he first lost to The Rock at WrestleMania, and then he went over Brock Lesnar at the following pay-per-view and in that Extreme match, and I think that was just a good time for them to go darker with him. And like I said, you don't have to be a heel to be dark. I mean, look at Liam Wood.
I think I know the perfect time when Cena could have done it. His first WrestleMania with Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, I mean, look at the storyline that they did, and on the songs and everything that they did, the legacy song, and it was again another time where they really could have gone further with it, and they didn't. And I think with Jeff's like a confident character, but for me, a lot of the time over the years, he maybe hasn't been, for a guy that's always around and always on the money with good promos. I don't think he's always been given like meaty stories to sink his teeth into. So it'd be kind of nice to give him something.
Actually, I do like looking back at occasionally some of the stuff. I mean, it's just I do feel like if you give him something, he will run with it. He's kind of like getting close to Cassius Z level in terms of just like banger after banger after banger.
That's what I mean. He's a consistent bloke. He always was in terms of. I don't want to say, like I was the one who made him world champion, but I did. But that was like, we're talking nearly 15 years ago now, and he never complains or anything like that, and he always gets stuck in, and he's a dead sound bloke. But when you give him I remember they did a storyline. I don't think I was involved, but maybe it was like 7 or 8 years ago with Mike Hill, and they were a tag team for a little bit, and then it broke off into a feud. I think it ended with an I Quit match, and Steele absolutely beat the shit out of Hill. And it's stuff like that. Like when you give him a proper story, and that's what I want to lead into with him. Like he's tried to do it with the Marty Helms feud, but then Helms disappeared.
It was still a good story.
Yeah, it was a good story, and you can tell a decent story. But for me, I think Jeff's at that point. I mean, he's not the only one. I want it for everybody, but I do think Jeff's at that point where it'd be really nice to give him a feud with somebody that he can bounce off, like, and they'll push one another, because I think Jeff will bring out the best of other people too.
Yeah. Getting back to history, the third match in this one, why did you bring up the EWF Global Championship?
Okay, so I think I'll tie in with the question I think was from Riley about sort of what's going on with, because I've sort of hinted that it's not forever. And so the idea with the EWF belt is, I don't know if you remember, this was my fed that I set up. I think it was 2013 after I'd left 6WF.
Vague recollections.
And basically, it's where Liam started out. Liam Thunder. We had Vincent Costello, and it was like, do you know what? I think we only ended up running for about 6 months, and we ended up merging it with 6CW. But we had some really good characters who went on to do massive things. And the world title was kept on when we merged. But then it just ended. I think when we, like one of these times when we shut down, probably 2018 or something. If I look at the title history, I think it was like Cerberus or somebody was the last person who held it. And then it was just not used, but it was never kind of explained. And I don't like that. I know it might sound like just an ego thing, but I don't. It's like with anything in a book or on a TV show or a film. I hate when things aren't. You're just expected to forget about them. And so for me,
Sorry,
You go on,
speaking of
mate.
that, have we lasted longer than Odyssey Jones on Raw?
Yeah, I mean, I know there was other stuff going on, but like when they just expect you to just forget, like the Mr. McMahon fucking limousine blowing up thing, and
That was exceptional circumstances, and we both
yeah, I
know
get
it.
that, but at the same time, like the Mohammed Hassan thing when they had the 7-7 bombings and they had that storyline
Yeah,
with the Undertaker, which fucked his career as well, which was a shame because I think he was going to be a big star.
I think he was slated to win that.
Yeah, exactly, and I think he was then going to go on to SummerSlam to challenge for the world title, from what I heard. But yeah, it's mad what can happen. But anyway, digressing.
Yeah. Oh,
The
and you were correct.
EWF belt.
Sorry, and you were correct. Cerberus did hold it. Was the last holder of it. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I thought it was, and we kind of when we came back, it was just that belt wasn't used anymore, and I think it's the same with the TAW belt, which obviously we've hinted at in shows. And I think I've talked about these belts, and there is a plan. And obviously, I'm not going to give away everything, but I think you can kind of read between the lines. Is obviously if we were to bring in the TAW belt, that would be 4 world titles, which sounds ludicrous for a roster of 22 or whatever it is. But there's an idea behind it, is that we're not going to have 4 world champions for ever.
yeah,
And I think if you'd read some tweets that I've put out I don't know, because I put out so many, I think some of them kind of get skated over. But there was one that I put out, I think it was last month or the month before, where I talked about some trademarks that the company had filed, which kind of hinted at where we were going with the belts.
yeah. I know what you mean. You did, there was a trademark one.
Yeah. So I think for me, it's just about, at the end of the day, like EWF was a big part, not just for me, but of that history with 6CW, the same way that TAW was obviously a massive part of 6WF's history. And maybe it'd just be nice to do. I just want to wrap it up. I think if you can sew it all together, maybe that's my thinking, is that instead of just having these belts disappear, just
But
give
you
them a
want to
storyline that is befitting. And then, yeah,
to
they
pull
don't have
like
to.
a Vengeance 2001.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could be heading for something similar. I'm not going to say we are, but I mean, the potential's there. 100% especially with the roster that we've got right now, and
Yeah,
I just think it's an interesting story that we've not had before. Again, we're always looking for something maybe a little bit different that we can do.
and
Which,
this
like I said, I've got an idea. We'll see.
and the end of this match leads into something a little bit later on. But Asa losing his mind.
Yeah, so I mean, again, with that match was a tough call. I mean, they're all tough calls, and I know you might think I'm just saying, but they are all tough calls because we have a competitive roster. Like, I think it really is from top to bottom, and I think that match with Harris and Asa and Riley, all really good, all top guys, all easily could be a world champion. And I think a lot of people probably thought Asa was going to win. It was certainly thought about.
I mean, I could see as an option to like say I think Riley winning, and oh god, especially the way he did as well.
Yeah,
Just
well,
like
he's a cheat, isn't he? This is the thing for me. Riley's like he's a proper heel. Like that's why I love the character. He's a cheat, and anything. And I think that's what the idea was in the segment that we had before the match, where obviously Oliver Keane got told he wasn't allowed to go out to ringside, but then he was whispering, and they had a plan if it came
yeah,
down to it, and that's, and like I think you said when we weren't recording about the finish, Now, you can get into
Just
the sort of semantics of it
let me
about how.
just let me quickly clarify how the finish went.
Yeah, sound.
Basically, Daniel Riley has Scott Harris in the crossface.
Yeah.
Harris is out.
Hmm.
And basically, what happens is, with it being a crossface, the case of right, Riley is making Harris tap.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I say, and just a quick disclaimer: it's like, how can he tap with both his hands around around Harris's face?
Yeah.
That was my main point.
Yeah, and it's a legitimate point, and I don't mind people asking stuff like this because sometimes, don't get me wrong, I get carried away with the writing, and I always try my best to think about how things look because I've read matches in the past, not knocking anybody because it's easily done where I think that doesn't make any sense. So I do think it's doable. I think, as I tried to explain to you, he could have easily brought with his far hand. He could have had that locked and still have hold of Harris's hand, but the idea behind it is that the referee, maybe I didn't explain it as well as the referee is practically like he's
He's
been
just
knocked
waking
out.
up.
He's been knocked out and he's just waking up. And the idea is that he doesn't even. I don't even think he's facing the submission. He's almost behind it, and all he sees is Harris's hand tapping on the mat. So
Yeah,
he doesn't see anything of, at this point, Riley might not even have the submission fully locked in. He's just tapping his hand on the mat, and therefore the referee, who's not of sound mind, just calls it off. Now, this
yeah.
is something that we will elaborate on in the next show. It isn't something that we've just completely forgotten about. It will be brought up.
There will be consequences.
Yes, and it will lead on to whatever comes next.
Yeah,
Obviously, we've got the thing with Riley's storyline where his contract's running up the day after Born in Fire. So
I'd actually completely forgotten about that.
yeah, so he's going into Born in Fire as a world champion. He's said that he won't sign a new contract and he will leave the company as a world champion the day after Born in Fire.
Okay.
He is obviously now a world champion.
Yeah.
And our next pay-per-view is Born in Fire. So yeah, let's see.
Speaking, and then we get a little bit with just the people in the main event, and
Yeah.
we get Andrews speaking to his son Kincaid and just basically just lighting the spark.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed it was kind of on a whim. After Night of Glory, we obviously we brought to a conclusion the Alex Walker Exodus sort of reign of terror and control.
Yeah.
And I didn't want JJ to be the authority figure because obviously I wanted him to sort of get back to the in-ring. So the idea was, well, there was two ideas. One was that obviously Max had retired from in-ring, but I had this great idea, like picture in my head of Eddie Kent, sort of giving it the big one because he'd retired Max, but then Max is announced as the new general manager. But then I don't know. I think the dynamic of Blue Dragon and Logan, and I remember their dad being a character back in 6WF, and I just thought it would be interesting, and I'm glad we did because I think Damian Andrews has. I think he's taken on a bit of a life of his own. I kind of enjoy him.
Yeah. I'm just looking through this now, and considering you hated writing this main event.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, I did. I did and I didn't. I hated the idea of writing it. Like I loved it when I announced it. I thought it's fantastic. We've never done it before. I think WWE have only done it once. if I remember rightly.
I think I've done it. I think not with. I think I've done a tag team chamber twice. I think.
Right, I remember them doing one with like the Lucha Dragons in it, and they did some crazy shit, and that was your role with Ghazi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm delighted. The main event of this match was for the 6 CWF Tag Team Championships, Blue Dragon and Logan Kincaid versus Genesis, which was Rex Adamson and Eddie Kent, Chris Patrickson and Liam Wood. Then you've got the coalition of JJ and Saint. You've got Gazzy D and Uri Yoshida, myself. And then you've got the Brothers of Seduction, Brandon
Yeah.
and Percy Percival.
Fucking love that team. Do you know what? Like, I don't know what it is because, as I've said to you, even off recording, and I said it on the last podcast, I'm not massive on the comedy characters, but I do like that team. I think what we've tried to do. Yeah, one they really blend together, but I think what I've tried to do, and the promos from the guys help, is that they're almost a legit threat at the same time, even though they're funny.
Yeah.
You know, and that was important for them to. I think we did it in the last pay-per-view at Scars and Stripes when Percy was involved, and everybody expected him to be the first eliminated, and he wasn't. And I think probably most suspected they'd be the first team eliminated in the chamber, and obviously they weren't. And I think that's important because even though they do bring a sort of comedy aspect to it, I think it's important that they can win matches, you know, and I've kind of liked this sort of side quest feud that Brandon Perez has had with Eddie Kent.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think I was the only person to basically say Percy was not getting eliminated first in that match, and I honestly didn't think they were getting eliminated first here.
No, no, but yeah, to go back to what about me hating the match or hating having to write it. What happened was I announced it, and I think that's great. It's a really great match. It's something different. We can combine so many different storylines. That was the most important aspect of it for me, was because we're a smaller Fed, you know. Fair enough. We've got decent numbers, and you know we may or may not have more to come. But you don't want to sort of overdo all the feuds. So I thought instead of doing 6 one-on-one matches, which we could have done at the pay-per-view, I thought we'll combine everybody together for this one, and it'll build it better for whatever we have planned for Born in Fire. But then the time came around when it was to write it, and as I've said to you, being the school holidays, and I'd taken some time off work. It was my daughter's birthday, and she ends up. We celebrate like the whole week because she's a spoiled little shit. No, but she's great. But basically, it was a busy week, and I'm thinking, when am I going to get time to write this match, because it's a big one, and it's all well and good, kind of wanting to write it, but the actual thought process of writing it was starting to sort of bug me. And we actually got to the last weekend and I hadn't wrote it, which is why I put that message out saying that I had been called into work, and I was like, the show's going to be delayed till Wednesday. And
then I just see your message of, oh no, it's going up tomorrow.
Yeah, so basically what happened is, and I don't know how. What I do, it involves a lot of sugar and a lot of caffeine, which I haven't done for years. I used to do it when I used to write the shows, but basically I overloaded on. I had Lucasade, and I had a cup of tea with like.
Did you drink a Coke Zero with Oreo in it?
No, but like I had like a cup of tea with about 5 sugars in it or something, and I was wired like off my nut, and I just sat and I bashed it out that whole match in about 7 hours. So when it was done, what I did was I made a plan. I wrote a plan, and
Obviously,
basically go on, mate.
you've got to have basically like the storylines linking with each other, the reveals that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wrote out a plan of kind of what we wanted to happen in the match. The big moments, but also pair every team entering. I wanted at least two sort of oh my god moments, which is why we did the Gazzy shooting star press kind of off the top of the roof, which is I'd seen the Lucha Dragons do during that tag team chamber.
And then you've got Liam Wood killing Gazzy.
Yeah, which like
literally in that case.
Yeah, which is again like was Final Fantasy VII, which is my favorite game ever, and was kind of, but also there were little hints and throwbacks because obviously they had a massive feud, Wood and Gazzy, and they were both in Edward Plague's cult, like the last time.
Okay.
So the idea again was, and I think I did it with the commentary saying, "Oh, is Wood doing Plague's bidding again?"
Yeah, you did mention that.
Yeah, it's they're little throw-offs. It's not a that is what's happening, but it just makes you think, And we did because I seen there was another clip that I'd seen from a chamber where somebody had launched somebody else off the top of the chamber into everybody, which is why we did the Blue Dragon power bomb on Percy, which knocked everyone down. But then obviously we wanted to get the big moments, and I think that's what the great thing about having everybody involved was that I think there were so many things that could have happened, things that people may have suspected were going to happen, and I knew a couple of them were, some of them weren't. So I think the idea was, is Rex going to finally turn on Eddie Kent? I think that was a big one going into it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And obviously there was the chance that Logan might turn on Dragon.
Yeah, let's have a quick rundown of the surprises they went. Quickly, just run through it in the order. We open with the Brothers in Seduction and myself and Gazzy D opening up.
Yeah.
We go back and forth, a couple of good a few highlight moments, and then Chris Patrick and Liam Wood enter, and then it gets a bit spooky.
Yeah.
We have, I assume, I'm not going to confirm or deny anything, but we have quote Edward Plague end quote appear, scare the living bejesus out of both of us, and then disappear while Gazzy gets properly killed.
Yeah.
By Liam Wood and not actually dead. Just for clarification.
Yeah, which obviously then leads to you getting eliminated because you're distracted from what's happened.
Yeah, and I get eliminated by Chris Patrick's.
Which again has its connotations. And yeah, so we can talk through that segment of the match, which the Plague thing is long running. I think there's a few things to take into consideration, both in character and out of character with that. I like Plague. I think we talked about this last time.
Yeah.
He's very Bray Wyatt-esque. I could have brought him back. There was an idea of bringing him back at this pay-per-view. But there was just so much else going on. In terms of, for a full-blown sort of reveal, I felt like with the stuff that we had to come later on in the main event, it would have just taken away if we'd have fully...
Yeah, it's a too many cooks kind of thing.
Yeah, so the idea was more to have a bit of a supernatural... again, I don't know whether you've ever played Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the thing with Sephiroth where he's got all the hooded sort of guys which I think are all just like clones of him, but
Yeah,
you
yeah,
never see their faces. They're just in black cloaks, like along the way.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of that kind of idea was in my head when he
Okay,
appeared. Like you don't see his face. So was it him? Was it not him? I mean, yeah, it was probably him. But
we don't know
and I
for
think,
sure.
yeah, and you know, it's kind of one of them, terribly kept secrets. There's no point in. Sometimes you've got to have the obvious. We all know. There's no point in me pretending that Ghazi and Plague are not going to meet because we all know they are. They
Yeah,
have to. So and I think as I hinted at with the tweets with yourself, there's no point in you are a part of that storyline, but I
I'm
don't
not
think
the
it's
main event.
no, but I don't think it's fair to keep you sort of treading water in terms of just waiting for because I think the Ghazi Plague thing has to be a one-on-one.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But also, I'm kind of in. I talked to. I was messaging Dicey. I think was last week. I actually really like this kind of dynamic between yourself and Patrick's. I think it's a very, very intriguing story that we can play around with in terms of. I think for me it makes sense in terms of obviously the connection to Max
Yeah,
is the biggest thing. I think what we're trying to hint at with Patrick's is that he's not a heel by any stretch. In his head, I think he's the hero of everything, and maybe that's misplaced. But if you look back to the stories from when he returned to help Max with the Genesis fight, he literally came out of retirement for Max. That's
yeah,
why he came back. He just came back for Max. That was it. He didn't come back to be a champion or anything like that. And I think the idea we're playing around with is that he believes, even though, so in story, you've talked about Max,
yeah,
and we did the promos. I think we did the segments many months ago where you'd thrown up the Project X sign and all this kind of stuff.
yeah. As I remember, I just got my ass kicked, and he's
Yeah,
just like, yeah, I still want to help if you want me to.
yeah. So you were offering to help, but in Patrick's head, none of you's helped, right? I think that's what we're sort of. Everybody claims to be Max's friend or whatever, but nobody actually tried to help him, including Rex, which is why we did the Patrick's Rex storyline. Rex
Yeah,
turned his back and went to Genesis, and I think that's the thinking, and I think I think the two characters. Personally, I think you guys could have a decent feud. I think it's something different, and again, it kind of blurred the lines because you're very much a face, and I think a
yeah,
lot of the fans are going to be on your side. But Patrick is going to have his own supporters too.
yeah. I mean, if you look back at the initial promos leading up to the chamber match itself between me and him, it's like, yeah, I came up with respect. He basically tried to bite my head off.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah,
yeah,
I ain't a fan of that.
yeah. He's not in a good place mentally. That's kind of how we're sort of playing it. He feels like he's being overlooked, but he also believes he's in the right with everything,
Yeah,
which obviously he isn't. But it makes for an interesting dynamic because he is a top star, and he's had, I think, 2 or else 3 world title runs in 6WF, but yet when he was involved in the match with Wood and Genesis, he was very much, just a side act, and that
yeah,
pissed him off. And I think with yourself, I think we had a segment. Was that like the last show before where you basically reached out to Logan, and you were trying to sort of
yeah.
help.
The Patricks came out and told me to stop being a hero.
Yeah, and I think that's again, he's kind of just shooting off at people, but he sees. I think the idea is obviously he's probably going to be in for a surprise, but he almost sees Uryu as an easy target for his anger.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that's going to be, like how much can you, like the kind of age old story of like a playground bully, like how many times can you push somebody
Yeah.
until they snap and retaliate? And I think that's kind of what I'm looking at with that story, is that obviously Uryu's painted out as a good guy. Even with the stuff with Ghazi, whether he stepped over the mark or not with Christie, but he didn't want to fight Ghazi. He was kind of almost forced on him. And we're looking at something similar. I just think it's a good feud. I think it's a different feud for yourself in terms of, instead of the same kind of, I think we do a lot of feuds with you where you just get your head kicked in.
Yeah, and in this one, my last promo, basically, I told him to go fuck himself in Arabic.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I think I think some of your best feuds, don't get me wrong, it's like the Angle, stuff where you get battered, but I think this one different. I think it'd be interesting to see. Maybe Patrick's needs a bit of a reality check, and
I mean, to be honest, when I go back and forth with Patrick's, it's a case of right. I get the same vibe that I get with Oh, do you remember one of my promos against Jerome Dubois randomly?
yeah,
Yeah, I get that sort of vibe, but like I say, it's there, but it's not like an extreme. It's like, yeah, I don't want to kick his head. I don't really want to kick his head in, but it's a case of, okay, I want to hurt you.
yeah, and I think this is why I like it. I think I know it's easy for me to say because I'm the guy designing
Or
it, but
booking it.
I think it's an interesting. When I sometimes after a pay per view, I sit down or whatever, and I look at the roster and I think about, there are obviously certain storylines that are going to carry on, and then I look at who's available and what we can do, what we haven't done before, who might mix well together. I think that storyline just kind of makes sense in a way. I
Okay.
know it's, again, I would say that because I'm booking it, but I think the whole thing with Max is, Patrick's hasn't adjusted since Max retired. And he's kind of treading water. And I think we had a bit where he was sort of allying with Damien Andrews at one point, and I think people thought he was going to turn heel. And this is kind of what we're carrying on. I think he's just kind of, it's like acting out almost, like, and you're the target because you've got a link to Max, and it's, like I said, it's a different kind of storyline. I think it's yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. But
I do have an idea for it afterwards, but after this has been recorded. But I'll tell you that then.
yeah, that's absolutely fine, mate.
Back to this, I'm just up to the point where the Brothers of Seduction have just been killed again.
Yep.
And they've just been eliminated. Like, what's the table spot? The flaming table with the thumbtacks and the fire.
Yeah.
Bit much.
It's Logan, though, isn't it?
True, but
Logan's an absolute psychopath. Like, I think for me, that was again, it's what I hinted at with, like, the storylines, with the segments, with every part of it. Again, for me, makes sense, but that's just me. In terms of what I've tried to say is, this is the difference between him and his brother. Like, his brother is brutal and will hurt you. Like, but there's a purpose for it. But there's no purpose for why Logan, like it's, like the line in
Logan is the
Batman.
rabid dog.
Yeah, like the line in Batman with Heath Ledger and Michael Caine says about the guy, and some people just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Logan. Like, he
Yeah,
just wants to destroy everyone and everyone, just anything. And yes,
I'm sorry.
it's a brutal spot. It's a brutal spot. Would a thumbtack's necessary? Probably not. But
Sorry.
people forget that I booked an elimination chamber uh, during the VIP mega show in 2009 when it was when I think Nemesis Tombstone. This is too far. This is when you think this is ridiculous. And I think it came in for a lot of stick at the time. But I mean, I was a kid back then. Nemesis basically got Hero on top of one of the pods, and then he tombstoned him off the pod through tables. I think there was like 3. Now, if you think about that if that happened, I mean, I don't think there'd be any way to prevent somebody from breaking their neck doing that in real
And
life.
Nemesis having blown out knees.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you say, is it too much? I mean, for me, that's a pretty tame. That's a tame spot, really.
Yeah,
just a simple choke slam through a couple of burning tables, like.
yeah. I was just trying to think. I was just my own personal opinion. I mean, you also had the barbed wire chair involved in there. I mean, I've actually even skipped a bit. I've forgotten the fact that Rex made his decision.
Yeah, yeah. Again, this is what I was saying. There was so many potentials. What people may have suspected was or was not going to happen during that match. Was Rex going to finally turn on Kent? What was on the disc that Max gave him? Which obviously we still haven't revealed, but there's plenty more to come for all of that. But I think, again, as I've hinted, and I can't give too much away, much more I think I'll be explained in the show next week, is that things have changed with certain storylines. Well, I can't tell you why, but they have. So it may not have always been the case. Maybe we're going to do something different. But for me, it just made sense. I think Rex and Kent's story, it has another chapter to it.
I mean, you were discussing this last. I mean, you were discussing this last time. Just with the way it could, you've got so many ways it could go, and you're just going. You're just narrowing your options a little bit. That's all I can say.
Yeah, well, I mean, a decision had to be made eventually on what we were going to do. Because I think we talked about it at length last time. You've got Kent, you've got Wood, you've got Rex. They're all doing great stuff. They all bounce off one another. They all work really well. Yes, you can have a 3-way feud, but there has to be, like I said before, there has to be a 1-on-1 payoff of that. Somebody, whether it's Wood and Kent, or Rex and Kent, or Wood and Rex, there has to be a 1-on-1 feud that comes out of it.
Yeah.
It's just simple logic and simple booking. Yes, you can have a great 3-way feud, but everybody remembers the 1-on-1 feuds. There has to be at some point a 1-on-1 mega match that comes out of that. Now,
I mean,
a decision for me has been made on that. And obviously the storylines will show what that is in the coming weeks. But the Rex decision inside the chamber, again, it's hard to. And I know Marky mentioned there's no point in him asking any questions because I'm just going to say you'll have to wait and see. But I think, unfortunately, that is an element of it with Rex's decision in terms of he made that choice. Then, is that the end of it? Is he, fully committed now to Genesis? Maybe.
I mean, case of how long? I mean, with this one, it's a case of how long's a piece of string. It's like you've got no idea how long it is, and you're the one who gave me the string.
Yeah, and look, I've made a decision, and I have. I have a card now, a definitive card, bar any changes last minute. But I know what we're gonna do at Born in Fire now. And it includes, I think there's 9 matches.
First possible for world champ.
I mean, stranger things have happened. And like I said to you last time,
we both know it.
yeah. Well, look, at the end of the day, like I said to you last podcast, any storyline is possible. But yes, the card is cemented in now. It's a concrete card of which.
Apart from any last minute changes, which you just said.
Yeah, I mean, and things.
It's not cemented in, is it?
Well, no. Look, what I mean is, like, in terms of, obviously somebody could say they're leaving, but for me, there's out of those 9, I would say there's 5 which are just. I'm not going to change them now, because that's the decision that I've made.
They're the foundation of the entire event, would you say?
Yeah, and they all make sense for what we're going to do. I mean, obviously, I feel like all the matches make sense, otherwise we wouldn't be having them. But yeah, I looked at it, and there's a couple that I thought, we could stretch them out till Night of Glory, but Night of Glory is not till next May. It's a long time,
Yeah.
It's a long, long time to stretch out these stories. And it's not that it's not possible, but I just think sometimes with e-fedding, sometimes you just got to pull the trigger. And
yeah.
And I think with some of these matches, it's... Put it this way, I feel like what we've got as a card and what I've got down is... Yeah, I think it's good to go. I think it's one of the best ones ever. Mate, any chance just for 2 seconds that I can just get a quick toilet break?
Yeah, sure.
You entertain the audience, and I'll be back.
Sure. But then we get then after the mentioned the flaming table and where are we? He's made Rex Adamson has made his decision. We get the interesting option. The coalition enter the ring, and after a few minutes of them basically taking control, we get including a frankly mad spot that includes a power bomb that damages a steel grate. We get the introduction of Asa, who has somehow crept in through the ring and decided to spear. Hang on, where is it? And just decided to spear JJ out of his boots. And basically cost the coalition the opportunity of the championships. And it's like, well, obviously Ace's he's a bit deranged at the minute, but Ace v JJ Johnson is a lot. It has been coming for a while. I mean, with Ace basically just being massively jealous of him, in my opinion. But this scene, the coalition is like, okay, bang, here we go. This is where it's going to be. And this leaves us with the final 2 of Genesis versus Blue Dragon and Logan Kincaid.
Apologies, I'm back. Apologies to everybody for the interruption.
No, it's fine. I was just basically telling them about how Ace screwed you out of the championship.
You did?
No, yeah, I told them that Ace screwed you out of the chamber match.
Oh, all right, yeah, that nodded.
Why would I screw you?
No, that's why I was confused. I was like, did you? I was like,
no. I was just
reread what I wrote.
No, I was just telling them that Ace screwed you out by because I mentioned the powerbomb spot with the grades.
Yeah.
And then we get through the then we get to the table spot itself.
Yeah.
In regards to Logan putting his own brother through it.
Yeah.
This was a nice way to finish the match.
I thought so, because, well, for a variety of reasons. I think, one, even though he lost, it made Dragon look like absolute nails. Like, you
Dragon was
know,
already nails anyway. I mean, considering he went through the extreme matches earlier on, and with like Cerberus and
but
months
this
and
what
months ago.
like, yeah, but I think the plan is obviously Blue Dragon is 6 CW world champion, which he hasn't defended yet, which is mad because he's had it for. But there hasn't been a point yet to do that.
Yeah,
It's coming, but obviously we've built him up as this absolute monster, sort of like Brock Lesnar esque. I would guess. So it takes something quite legit to beat him, and
yeah.
obviously we chokeslammed through a couple of burning tables.
It's like Cena being eliminated from the chamber with what was it, a spear, a 619, and something else.
Yeah, he took a few finishes, didn't he? And
Yeah, he took like 3 or 4 in a row.
I think it was a code breaker as well. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
not.
I think it was a code breaker, but yeah. Um, but to clarify, the end result is Genesis becoming the new 6 CWF Tag Team Champions,
Yeah,
and then it gets a little bit further on where Logan just doesn't want to stop.
yeah, and again, I had fun with it, and I didn't think, like I said before, I wasn't looking forward to writing it, and then when you start to sort of flow with it, it was so. Yeah, obviously we kind of hinted at then Rex was going to go full blown onside with Genesis by cashing in and taking Dragon's title, which Logan wasn't going to allow to happen. Now,
Logan's
obviously,
going,
then you would
sorry,
surmise that the reason he doesn't want that to happen is because he wants the belt for himself.
I think he honestly just wants to beat his brother himself. And
Yeah, and
also
this is
beating up Rex is going to be no fun for him. He has to kick the absolute living shit out of his own brother.
look. This is again for me. This is an evolution of a storyline, and I've been back and forth with Craig, who does Blue Dragon, and
Oh, get well
so,
soon, by the way, mate. Because
yeah,
sorry, he's had recent injuries. Craig's had recent injuries and he's recovering from them. So get well soon, mate.
yeah, absolutely. I hope everybody and same to Liam because I think he's broke his leg, hasn't he? Yeah. So as a Fed, but yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. But yeah,
Real life is interfered.
yeah, and going back with the Liam one was another reason as to why I think we'll hold off on the full blown plague comeback because I don't want to add to Liam's sort of workload with that. It's something that we like I said, I think we can stretch that out for a while because Plague's just that kind of character. But yeah, so for the end of the show, and that's what I wanted people to think: does Logan want the world title? Does he just want to destroy Blue Dragon? Does he just want to destroy everybody? For me, it's an evolution of a story. Now they had an amazing storyline, I think, in 6WF when it was first revealed that Logan was his brother or whatever. I think that was over the hardcore title,
Yeah.
which was fantastic. And for me, this is an evolution of that story in terms of now they've progressed up the card to two of the main guys. I think it's probably like a bit of a Kane Undertaker story we could tell 1,000 times.
It's a Kane Undertaker story, but I think it's more like do you remember how when Rock and Triple H first fought?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. They're like, okay, they're in the IC title picture. It's like a couple years later, they are main event.
Yeah, and yeah, this is what I mean. They've stepped up. I think they feuded over the hardcore title on a Born in Fire card when the main event was JJ and Cassius, and they were like 2 matches below it or something. And obviously we're heading into Born in Fire again, and they're going to be, one of the, what looks like they're going to be one of the main event matches, which I think's only right in terms of, one, Lee and Craig deserve it. They're both fantastic. But again, when I say Undertaker and Kane, it's only probably because of the brothers, and I think because we can do dark, but it's not supernatural, is it? I think it's more bloodthirsty in terms of, I think we can have some real fun with the story.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting anybody to start fucking shooting thunderbolts at one another, but I think they can. I think there's a big story yet to be told, and obviously Damian Andrews will play a part in that. But obviously the end of the show, even though he told Logan to go and do whatever, at the end of the show, was he shocked, by what he'd actually done? Or was he pleasantly surprised? Again, I guess we'll get
find
to
out
that
eventually. The very last thing is just Damian Andrews is just staring at the carnage in disbelief.
Yeah. So, he's kind of been egging Logan on for a while, but did he expect him to go that far? We'll see.
Yeah, and yet, if we go onto the card for next week, you've got me facing him.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a logical match. I think it's, Logan's finally snapped. And like I said before, we like to have a match where you get your head kicked in.
Well, I know the result of my match already.
No, but what I mean is I think obviously we hinted at it in the last show before the pay-per-view that you were trying to get through to him. You obviously have a history. You used to be tag team champions. I think it's in Uryu's nature to, maybe foolishly try and.
Yeah, I mean, it's a case of, at this point, though, it's a case of what I've seen. It's like, I'm not an idiot. It's a case of, this is survival.
Yeah, and that's where, we're going to look at with the match, because what are we going to get from Logan? Yes, he's absolutely killed his brother, but, there needs to be more.
Yeah.
The first show after the pay-per-views are always, I think, the hardest to write in terms of, for me, because even though we've got 5, 6, 7 matches or whatever it is, it's the explaining of it's the segments for these shows. Like, a lot needs to be explained, and a lot needs to progress where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I mean, speaking of that, though, there was a question that did catch my eye.
Yep.
Basically, it was no. Oh, something about basically going beyond Born in Fire. Do you have anything? Here it is. Do you have anything going? Do you have any recommendations of what's to come, or are you just planning the next big toe?
Right. So, I mean, we've got 2 other pay-per-views before Night of Glory. So we've got Born in Fire in November. If you see, I have updated the schedule. I don't know if anybody ever actually looks at the schedule.
I actually did, yeah. So I know.
We have got 2 others. And no is the the short answer. As I've said before, I know the Born in Fire card. I had some ideas for Night of Glory, but I think, as I've said last time, I've learnt my lesson in some ways of planning too far ahead. I think I've got some ideas of what I'd like to do. There's certainly some great feuds to be had. There is one match that I'm definitive I know is going to happen at Night of Glory. That 100%. Obviously, I can't tell you, but there is one absolute nailed on match, even this far ahead. So I think it might be May next year, Night of Glory, but there is definitely
Night of Glory is the 12th of May.
Yeah, well, there's a match that's definitely going to happen.
Percy Percival World Champion confirmed.
Again, strange things have happened, but there's a match that I know 100% is happening at Night of Glory, and nothing's going to change my mind on that.
Okay,
I
well,
just think, yeah,
speaking of Aftermath, why don't we just quickly run down the card? I mean, we've got
yeah,
Angus Plague against Davey versus Diego Romero.
yeah,
That one, I'm not going to put any predictions or anything, but that's going to be an interesting one.
yeah. I mean, it's obviously the two new fellas together. Hopefully, we can get them both promoing.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Jeff's back. My name's Jeff. I can't help but do it every time, but um,
there was,
hopefully, Play's going to come up with something, and yeah, I think for
I
me,
want,
it's that's just the Romero storyline will progress out of that, and we'll do something with the Angus Plague character in terms of, yes, he is aligned with Perfect Jack, but I don't just want that to be his thing because
yeah,
it's not really, one, it's not a great way for somebody to be used, I don't think, and two, I'm not sure Jack overly needs it. Just they're a good alliance, I think, more than anything. I don't think I want him to just be a sort of cut and dry enforcer type character.
yeah. I mean, think about it. Batista actually started out that, and I'm not comparing Perfect Jack to Reverend Devon.
Oh yeah, do you remember that? It was fucking awful, wasn't it? But like
It
when
got
they
him on
made that mental
TV.
decision to split the Dudleys up, yeah,
Yeah, and Deacon Batista.
yeah,
Okay, then we
We're not gonna do that.
good. Then we've got the Brothers of Seduction versus Jimmy Phillips and Mike Masters.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Again, it's Phillips and Masters had an alliance going into the pay per view. Obviously, that elapsed during. But I also think it's always nice. It's Gazzy's secondary character in Phillips, and Colt, who does Masters, is, like I said before, he's a bit intermittent, but he's a good promoer. But maybe it might be helpful for them to just have the tag division always needs faces, and let's see. I just want to see if they can blend well together. It might
yeah,
be a bit of a sort of trial, but
yeah. I mean, this definitely will be an interesting match to keep an eye on. I mean, honestly, money's on the brothers to win.
yeah,
If I was a betting
yeah,
man,
yeah, and look, that's with them, the Brothers of Seduction. It's, as I've said earlier, I like the team. I think it's important to present them as a legit tag team in terms of they're not just a joke. They can go. So coming out of the Elimination Chamber, obviously they took an absolute smashing, quite literally.
yeah,
But yeah, for me, it's just about keeping we want to keep the tag team division rolling on. Because we've had a big main event tag team title match, but a lot of those teams involved in that chamber match are going to be moving on to other things. So
you basically split two of them up.
well, yeah, exactly. So we've got to keep that rolling.
And then you've got ACV Chris Patrick's. That one's like a pay-per-view caliber in my opinion.
Yeah, but I think this is the problem though, is that I think the roster that we've got is pay per view caliber most of the way through, and I think a lot of the time the matches that we're putting on could all be on pay per view and probably will be at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I can see 3-5 and I can see 3-5 in the main event definitely being a main event at some point.
And this is it, isn't it? I mean, I think at the last show before Beachfront Brawl, we did the Beat the Clock challenge, and we had, I mean, there was JJ Blue Dragon, Rex Gazzy, there was you and Chris Patricks, there was Wood and Kincaid. These are all matches that could easily headline pay per views,
Yeah.
but the Asa Patrick's match again is
They're
a
both
lot of
going
this will be. Like I said that I'm hoping for a good show that everybody will enjoy, but obviously, the first show's a lot of storyline progression. So the Asa thing is all going to be centered around him and me.
Patrick's,
And it'll be a
obviously,
kid.
as you've implied, is me and him.
Yeah, yeah, and Patrick's and he's got his stuff with you, but also just his whole stuff, his whole demeanor is off at the minute, and the crowd are going to be splitting that because I mean, Asa. I mean, would you call it? Is it a full blown heel turn? We'll have to wait and see. I still think some people are going to cheer for Asa. Potentially.
I'd honestly call it a full blown heel turn after what he did, but it could be, I don't know, it could be like a pseudo HBK thing. I mean, let's face it, HBK, I suppose you could technically call him the heel when he faced the Undertaker for a second time, but he had
Yeah,
his reasons.
yeah, and I think what we're going to look to do, obviously, with me and Asa, again, consider him a decent, a good friend. That, like with Saint, me and him have kind of always sort of got along, outside of this EFED and stuff. So I think we'll put our heads together and hopefully sort of develop a good, interesting storyline. I think Asa in story would definitely have his reasons for what he did. Whether people agree with it or not is a different matter. But he is, or he will present it to the audience that there was legitimate reasons as to why he did what he did.
Yeah, and Patrick, you said pretty much he has his own reasons for doing it. He has his own viewpoint on things, twisted as it may be.
Yeah.
And then you've got this one, personal gripe, not a gripe, such to say, but Cassidy and Jeff Steele versus Danny Riley, Perfect Jack. What is with the word revolution in brackets?
Well, that's their team.
Okay.
Previous team. They were a tag
Okay.
team. They came up together in 6CW. They were a faction with a guy called Mike Logan. So they were tag partners.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Jack.
My history's a bit gappy in terms of that.
Yeah, I've said before. I like my history. They were tag team partners turned bloodthirsty rivals. I think over the 6CW title at one point. But I think where they are in terms of mindset now, and obviously they're both champions currently, it makes sense for them to be teaming together. You may think it doesn't make sense, maybe because obviously you've been teaming with Gazzy, for you to not be teaming with Gazzy in that. But again, there are reasons.
Yeah, like I say, I can make it work.
Yeah, I mean, some of which I can't say because we haven't developed the story yet. But there were, again, hints put out during the pay-per-view where we talked about a bit of a incident that took place. Now, I don't know if you remember, I said that Dicey and Daniel Riley had a fight backstage.
I think it was a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it?
No, this was during the pay-per-view.
Oh, I've completely missed this then. My apologies.
So yeah, I put out a live tweet. It was one of the tweets basically where we've hinted at, was it a work or was it legit? Was it a bit of a CM Punk fucking Jack Perry incident? But basically I put out that before they went on air, there was a fight between Dicey and Daniel Riley backstage, which was broken up by Jeff Steele and Gazzy.
Got you. I'm just reading this now.
Yeah. And there are reasons for this, of which we haven't developed in storyline purposes yet, but it is building towards what we have to come down the line.
Yeah.
Plus, Gazzy and Jeff, it's just I like to play around with things. Obviously, all four of them involved in that match are pretty much near. I don't think they're quite. They're not all quite 6CW originals, but near enough.
Yeah,
And just playing off a little bit. So Ghazi was 6CW champion. Jeff Steele beat him to become 6CW champion. But Daniel Riley was the one who helped Steele to beat Ghazi. It's
yeah,
all just I'm just playing around with a few things, and plus I think all them guys will probably I think they can bounce off each other. Well, I know Steele and Riley can because they had a great feud. You know, back end of I think it was Born in Fire last year.
yeah. It
Steele and
was.
Riley, yeah, and they were great together.
And
And there's no harm in if I know that things work. There's no harm. I think enough time's kind of passed for them to go up against each other again.
yeah,
But that's
the,
not. We'll see.
yeah, the fifth bout we've pretty much already gone over. I'm going to be killed.
Well, you say that, but again, it's for me. You can
It's
do
about.
a
I'd
yeah.
say it's about putting Logan over.
Well, yes, yes and no.
Logan
Yes
is
and no.
dangerous.
I
Logan
mean,
will kill.
it's a storyline in terms of for me. You can do a card. I don't know. It's hard. I remember when we used to do, or I don't know if you remember this far back. Like when River Ace was in charge and that. And
Yes,
sometimes they'd throw up a card and you'd look at it and and fair enough, when the show was wrote, you could see the progression of stories, but you'd think these are just random matches. But I like, it's not always possible, but I do like the matches to make sense. For me,
yeah. Why this
Logan.
makes sense as well? Because, like I say, it's shoot off of a chamber, offshoot of the
Yeah.
chamber. Like I say, it's Logan's got a point to prove. I've got to basically survive.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, you're kind of still in a point proving. I think we've hinted at that in the shows that ever since you kind of dropped the world title that you've struggled to, and that's a for me that's a long running story. Is that your form? You have been unable to find consistent form since
Yeah,
losing the world title, but that's a purposeful thing. That's not again.
that's
It's
what
not a. Oh my god, who the fuck's that man doing?
I
Sorry, mate.
apologize. No, don't worry. Basically, I'm heavily biased against this, but hey, I know I'm going to lose this. It's just I don't know how. But then we look at the main event. Liam Wood v Rex Adamson. If Liam Wood wins, he gets a title. Yeah. If Liam Wood wins, he gets a title shot. If he loses, he gets no more chances at Eddie Kent. I believe it's as long as Eddie is the current champion.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I'm back. Apologies. Blame my missus because she can't stop buying things online. Yeah, main event, obviously the massive one. It is pretty much like you said. It is, or could easily headline any pay-per-view.
It's Liam Wood's basically last shot while Eddie Kent is currently the champion. So
yeah, it's massive, and so Rex and Liam opened the show at Night of Glory in the Fight for the Right final.
Yeah,
it's one of the easiest matches I've ever wrote in my life. Like just when two characters blend together so well. I just think they're perfectly made for one another. They just seem that what the styles and the characters that are being created blend so well together. And that's what's made my decision difficult with the whole, like we talked about, the triangle feud. But yeah, so the idea going in is that obviously Liam is sort of at desperation level now.
yeah.
He is and believes, whether rightly or wrongly, that he should be already the world champion. He was parading around with that sort of cardboard cutout belt or whatever, and
Yeah.
This is his last chance because obviously him and Damian Andrews have been clashing. So the idea is that Max and Andrews, whilst they don't see eye to eye, because Max thinks should be already be the number one contender. They've come to a sort of
Agreement.
agreement that Wood can become the number one contender, but this is his last chance. So
Yeah.
and there will be more to add to that during the show.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking about briefly to your interruption by your wife, did she buy Saint a title?
Say again, mate.
Speaking back to when you're the last interruption we just had, was it a title for Saint?
Yeah, I seen him crying about it. Do you know what? It's so difficult in terms of for a number of reasons. I think he might start be thinking that it's. Remember, I said last time that everyone thinks I used to let him win things because he's my mate, and now maybe it's like the other way. Because he's my mate, I can't let him win anything. But I don't know. It's not even to do with that, and it's not to do with ability, because everybody knows that his promo ability is absolutely fantastic.
It's the storyline. Like I say,
yeah, sometimes it's just right place, right time as well. You know, in terms of, I know that might sound mental, but Scott Harris is a real good character. I really like him, and Saint's been on at me a few times saying that he thinks he's like he's too bland, or you know. I said to him, for me, the Scott Harris that I've been trying to create for a while now is that he's just a wrestling machine.
Yeah.
You know, not every character has to be like super charismatic, or like, look at, I know Kurt Angle grew into like massively charismatic, but like Benoit, for example, I know he's not somebody that people like to talk about, but he wasn't overly charismatic. He wasn't particularly, for me, he wasn't a fantastic mic worker or anything like that, but you knew that every time he got in the ring, he was going to be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Same with who we base Harris off now is Josh Alexander in TNA, and I've watched him quite a few times, and I really like his in-ring work. Again, I don't think he's particularly fantastic with a mic, but you know that he's going to deliver every time he's in the ring, and that's what we're trying to do with Harris, and I think we have. I just think the way the chips fall sometimes, it's hard. Like I said, I wish I could make everybody a champion, but it isn't a reflection. It isn't a reflection of how good or not good you are. Like you said, it's storylines. It's like.
I mean, I completely understand the position. I mean, there are some people I would push up to be champion if I did it, but then it's a case of, it's like you've got 50 people chasing after one title.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Look, we've probably, well, I don't know how many have we got at the minute. We've got like 5-6 titles or something. And we've got,
and you're compressing that down to about 3.
Yeah, and we've got 20 plus characters, so go figure. There's a lot of characters that currently don't have belts, and we've got a couple of characters that have got 2 belts at once, like Eddie Kent. But and again, they're fantastic, and Ed's been brilliant, and same with Marky with Rex. But that doesn't mean that the people that don't have them aren't. And I think we talked about this last time is, for me, that's why I try to give everybody a storyline, because I prefer a good storyline from a personal perspective. As long as I'm involved in something that's engaging, I don't. Yeah, it's nice to have a belt. Don't get me wrong; it's nice to be recognised as a champion, but
it's the person. It's the belt's just like an addition to the champion or addition to the wrestler.
Yeah, and I
mean, who was it who basically did that? It's just like a prop for the person. I think it's with like Russo or somebody who said it.
Yeah,
it's like the person makes the belt, not the belt makes the person.
Yeah, and it's hard, isn't it? Because again, you look back. I think we all come from a time. Most of us have been doing this for a long time, and we probably come from a time where it was the so-called best people. Again, that's always up for debate, but the best people got the belts, and yes, that's still exists to a degree, but for me, there's a lot more to it. In terms of, I don't think it's just a given anymore that somebody. I mean, but case in point, I don't always manage to promo, but when I do, I feel like I'm pretty good. And
Note as we're recording this, you have put up a promo at the start of this.
yeah, and it's a bit different. It's just a little bit of a sort of precursor to one that I'll probably write for the in show next week. But I think I'm all right. Like, I think I'm pretty decent. But it's one. Well, obviously I'm the booker, so it's difficult because you have that idea of should I be winning a belt or not. But I could see my promos. I could think, yeah, it's worthy of a belt. And same with a lot of other people's. I think Ace's work has been absolutely brilliant since he's come back.
Yeah.
And easily could put a belt on him, but storyline dictates. It's for me made much more sense from his, obviously, for what was to come later on. See, people might have read the match for the EWF belt and thought, "Oh, Ace hadn't won. That's a real shock." But then, obviously, later in the show, why he didn't win it.
Yeah.
It's sort of, that's what we do, and it's not a reflection. I don't want anybody to ever be thinking, "Oh, I'm not a champion because I'm not any good," because it's nothing to do with that.
Every person has their time, and every person has their place. I mean,
yeah. Look, everybody. I see value in everybody and everybody's promos, and there's a reason to make anybody a champion at any point. And the same thing in the past. I think it's why we've lost people in the past, because I think
they feel like they're putting banger after banger after banger of a promo out, and they're not getting anything for it.
Yeah, and I think we went through a period where a lot of the same people were winning the titles all the time. And that's not to say they didn't deserve it, but I do think sometimes when you've got a big roster, you've got a duty as the booker to be sort of thinking outside the box. So, like with a Cassius, for example, I'm not going to get on to try to tempt him back, by the way. I know we did a lot of that in the last podcast, but he's the character who, yes, he was probably the best, but there were so many storylines that you could develop, like his storyline with you, which was great. You can pull people away from the belts. They don't always have to be, WWE do it, other feds do it. Sometimes it's nice to see other people step up into the main event, even for a month, something different. A different feud, or a different, it might be a bit, you might be like, oh my God, I can't believe that's a world title fight. But there's other feuds on the card, and you think, well, yeah, give somebody else a shot.
Yeah. Speaking of the feds and all that, just to segue into a question.
Yep.
If you could bring one WWE and one AEW star to the Fed, who would it be and why? And then who do you book from here to go to them?
Oh, okay.
I think I'll stick this one right off the bat, and I don't care if it doesn't count. I want Joe Hendry.
Yeah.
Because I believe.
I don't mind Joe Hendry. I think, again, everybody has its place, and he's obviously super over, which helps. And sometimes you've got to listen to that.
He is over, and he has improved his work so much.
Yeah, he's a good worker, and I'm not going to fault that. He wouldn't be my choice, but that's, there's a lot to choose from. WWE wise, for me, it's a no brainer. Who I would bring is Jacob Fatu, who I think is phenomenal. I think he is going to be WWE champion at some point. I think he's already overshadowed pretty much everybody else in the bloodline. Obviously, they purposely held him off from clashing with Roman Reigns because they see how much money that is as a main event of a pay-per-view.
Yeah,
I watched a lot of Fatu's work in MLW with Hammerstone, and for a guy that size to be so agile, but also just he looks legitimately terrifying.
yeah. Trying to think. I mean, honestly, if I had a second choice, I'd take Miz.
Yeah, I
Miz
mean,
is just up and
Miz has
down the
got
card.
his.
He is good.
Yeah, he's. I don't mind Miz at all. I think the bloodline in general would be interesting. Sort of in our Fed.
Yeah. Okay, then. AEW side. Same question, but AEW. Who'd you take?
It's hard picking it because I think they've got so many high caliber wrestlers. I think we talked about Nigel McGuinness earlier coming back, which I think that'd be interesting.
Like I say, at the current contract status, Brian Danielson has not signed it. Nigel has. Tony has.
Yeah, I mean Brian Danielson again. It would be, him and would be brilliant. Will Ospreay, obviously. I can imagine an Ospreay versus sort of Rex Adamson main event, which I think would be just
Yeah.
like 60-minute banger. But also, I'm a big fan of Alistair Black and their whole thing, which I think has been underutilized at times. But it's hard with AEW because they've got about 75 million wrestlers on the roster, haven't they?
Oh, if you include ROH, yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I was to pick one from AEW, this is going to be. I would take. Oh God, my heart says MJF, but that's the obvious choice. I would go with. My mind just completely blanked on him. It's not Orange Cassidy either.
Yeah, thank God for that.
Hey, I like him.
He's not welcome in our Fed.
Oh, thanks. Just watch him tweet us this now. I would actually. I had him in my head. That's it. I would honestly take Big Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a good worker. I think actually, if I was to do AEW currently from a selfish point of view, it would be Swerve. I think Swerve and JJ as a feud would be. Yeah, I'd like to book something like that.
Yeah.
Because he's a horrible bastard in it, and I just think. I mean, I've loved the feud that they've done with Paige, and I think.
Swerve didn't just set. Swerve didn't set Hangman's house on fire. So
I know,
would you
but
take?
the thing
Would you
is that I
take
think they've
Hangman
done well
instead?
with it because originally he was the piece of shit in the rivalry, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I think as a heel, I do prefer him as a heel, but I think Hangman's done well with
Okay.
his sort of run in that feud.
And then the reverse. If you could book a 60 WF star to go to WWE and AEW, who and why? I will preface this: can't be the same person going to both.
All right, well, I think Liam Wood to AEW. I think he's kind of, I don't know. I think he's more their style. I've taken into the sort of sports entertainment side of it as well, of what I think WWE would book well. I think Wood would be used better in AEW.
I can see. Sorry, in AEW, I can see Scott Harris with
Yeah, again,
Hook.
Scott Harris is just like, yeah, but WWE could use him well, I think.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Like I could see him with Hawk. I could see him with Joe and Hawk.
Yeah, I think WWE could do Logan Kincaid justice though.
Do we do? Honestly, I mean, if anyone here, I would actually like to see you.
Yeah, I think obviously the comparison's been drawn over the years, like with my character and like The Rock. So
I'd like to see how you basically just, I don't know, go to one, just NXT
Yeah,
and just have fun there.
yeah. I'd like to see. I think JJ had been, like when they did the whole Cena and Rock storyline, which obviously was like the one for the ages kind of thing.
Yeah,
But they're very different characters. And whilst it sold well, I think The Rock and Hogan was a better story for me because, well, one, it was the time that I grew up in, but I seen a lot of similarities with those, the way they were from the eras that they were. But I think Cena with his sort of thugonomics character and all that kind of stuff, I think he'd be more. I think JJ and Cena would be a better feud because of like JJ's background,
yeah,
uh, and he is like a legit sort of from the hood. So I think he'd hold his own better with Cena because he'd be like Cena's sort of fake, sort of wannabe rapper gangster, whereas JJ actually has come from that background. It'd be interesting to see, like the way that Cena ended up getting up under Rock's skin because he called him out for like the way he had his promos wrote on his arms and that. Like, I
yeah.
think,
That was the bit where it basically turned from okay wrestling, okay let's have a dig personally.
yeah, I didn't overly like because I was a big Rock fan. But I think JJ would be. I think he'd get under Cena's skin in the same way. Basically just call him out for, like, especially now, because you think back to that storyline and the stuff that he called The Rock out for, and basically he's done exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and then you've got oh god, but then he'll probably just bury you like he did Austin Theory.
I mean, yeah, he could try. I don't think. I feel like I could hold my own with him.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh
look, it's interesting. I think a lot of those characters that we've got, I think they are AEW probably have fun with. What are these fucking blokes that they've got now? This tag team from like the 80s or whatever.
I'm trying to think which one that is.
They've got these fellas now. I don't even know what they're called. I just seen on Twitter the other day like these fellas who look dead old, but they're calling themselves like the youngest looking tag team ever or something. And it's
That's the
like they
Outlaws.
really, yeah, it might be them. And they've released this video of them like training, and it's like being shot on like a shitty camera, like it's in the 80s and stuff like that. And I
I
think
don't really.
it just properly gave me like Brothers of Seduction vibes. Like I just could see them being like that. I think
Yeah,
they'd be massively over in somewhere like AEW, Percy, and like I could see like the whole Percy shtick with the fucking like a prayer and all, like I could see that at Wembley. Do you know, like all in, and
yeah.
I just think that they'd be massive in that.
Oh god, you've just made me imagine the out. Sorry, the Brothers of Seduction and Grado.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. I just genuinely think they would be huge in AEW. I think they'd be absolute sets for a run with the tag belts and
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, trying to think what else there is. Um, Sorry, I'm just looking through questions here as well, see if we've missed any.
yeah, you find me.
I think we've actually covered majority of these, apart from the couple of the silly ones.
Oh, we've got silly ones.
Favorite characters on The Simpsons and Family Guy, respectively.
Was this from Ed?
It's from Kenzie.
Of course. I reckon Family Guy, even though I don't overly, I used to watch it. Is probably Stewie.
Everyone just likes Stewie, and I agree with them.
Yeah, and the
Stewie is
dog. What's the
great.
dog called? Brian.
Brian, yeah.
Yeah, like they're funny. I just like Peter does me nothing.
Brian is
Uh,
kind of like going towards Lisa vibes, and it's like, yeah.
yeah, Simpsons wise, I mean, when I was a kid, it was probably Bart, but it's probably Homer now.
I mean,
because I just think he's an absolute arse in it, but he's
personally,
just funny.
sorry, personally for me, I think one of the I think the characters I most ironically connect with is Skinner, Seymour Skinner.
Really?
Yeah, you kind of get it. He's a Vietnam vet. He's changed his name, taken an identity, and just gone. Yeah, but you realize why he's suffered through so much, and he's still going.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm more into South Park than them two, to be honest with you. So, but I think I used to watch The Simpsons when I was younger. I don't think I've watched it for. I mean, I seen on Disney Plus the other day that there's like 30 odd series of it, which blows
Yeah,
my mind.
Simpsons is going through it feels like it's going through extreme burnout.
I just don't think I could sort of bring myself to watch it. And Family Guy too. I mean, I used to watch it. So I'd say they were probably my favourite characters, but none of them come close to Eric Cartman from South Park, who I think is one of the greatest animated characters of all time.
I'm trying to think. I mean, if we're talking greatest animated characters of all time, God, who did I just have? Honestly, this is going to be a wild long shot. It's going to be. I'm going to say Mr. Satan from Dragon Ball.
Yeah, to be fair, I do love a bit of Dragon Ball.
The guy has survived everything under the sun. Is the hero? Yes, he's a fraud, but even when he loses, he wins.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so. It's just. I know it's a bit ridiculous and out there, but let's face it. He has fought two people that could kill him in an instant and lived. Not even
yeah.
Krillin has done
Exactly.
that.
It's like you, isn't it? It's like your character in 6CWF.
God, I am the Mr. Satan of 60WF. What the hell?
There you go. Let's see whether you survive next week.
Oh God, yeah. And speaking of survival, I think it's about time we wrap it up there for this little edition of the VIP Productions podcast.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll just say quickly to let everybody know. So next week, the next show after this one is what we call Unleashed 2, which is obviously the sequel to a concept designed by my good friend Saint way back in 2008, I think.
Okay, I've been waiting to hear. I'm wondering if we were going to say anything about this.
Yeah, so basically what's going to happen with that, and from the original, what he did, I am led to believe, so we're going to do something similar. He basically just drew everything out of a hat. Okay, like everything. So names like for matches, match types, and it was all just random, like random as shit. So it could be anybody against anybody.
So this is basically like the WWE Vegas shows.
Yeah, so we're just gonna have, yeah, anything could happen. We're just
Actually,
gonna draw some names. I think I'm just gonna use like one of them randomizer sort of things off the internet, and
see what
yeah, so
happens.
expect the unexpected with that one.
Okay. Speaking of the series of specials, I mean, I'm just looking through the schedule now. You've got two more coming up before Born in Fire. You've got the
Yeah,
Road to Royalty,
yeah,
and you've got the Survival special.
yeah.
Can you explain both of those quickly before we
Yeah,
head on?
yeah. So Road to Royalty is obviously like our King of the Ring. It's just another for Born in Fire. I've got, like I said to you, I've got this big card planned, and I want to look at various different ways of making that card happen. So we've come up with a few ideas. So the Unleashed card is going to help me because anything could happen, which is going to help me basically make anything happen. Road to Royalty is, well, Scott Harris is the current king. He won it last year. And basically the winner, obviously you get a nice crown, but you also get a world title shot. So that's going to help with Born in Fire.
Yeah.
And the Survival special, if you remember, Survival was a 6WF pay-per-view, which was the Survivor Series.
Ah, okay. And that is the
And we're
show.
going to have that. Yeah, the last show before Born in Fire will be almost like a Survivor Series special.
Okay. But like I say, Well, thank you for quickly wrapping those up. I mean, do we have anything like that coming up? Well, obviously, cards subject to change, obviously.
Yeah, everything's
you might-
subject to change.
I mean, you might like Unleashed so much we might have it, I don't know, in a couple months, in like 3 months' time.
Well, the Unleashed thing's a bit of a trial because I thought it was really good last time. Everyone thought it was. I know it was a long time ago, but everyone thought it was mental and just Saint being Saint, which it was. But I think it's just we can do what we want in EFED, can't we? Like we're not subject to the same rules or regulations as like an actual live television show. So if I decide let's just mix it up, like you can. So that's the plan. We may end up having 6 CWF's first ever Punjabi prison match. Who knows?
Well, Percy with a paddle and a pole match. I don't know why I keep going to that.
But anything's possible. Anything is possible. Like any match could happen. Anybody could face one another, and we'll mix it up. So, say for example, I don't know, we drew Blue Dragon out, then I'll do another draw where it's like, is his title on the line? Is his title not on the line?
Yeah, I mean, I am looking forward to it.
Yeah, I just think it'll be interesting, and like I said, it'll be carnage, and it'll be a bit of a throwaway, but at the same time, I think it'll be good. So, yeah.
I expect the match to be basically just be a load of question marks versus question marks.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, promos wise, I'm probably not expecting a lot of promos that week because people are not going to know what they're involved in.
No, but it's a nice little challenge. Basically, can you advance the story with it happening? I mean,
yeah, well, that's it. I think it's just something different. Instead of every week we have a match card and everybody knows what they're doing and you can kind of guess. But with this one, it's just going to be a case of who fucking knows? Like even I don't know yet.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Righty-ho, that was, and this is going to be the final end, not the final end, I should say. This is going to be the end of the VIP Productions Podcast, Episode 2. I've been Robert, he's been JJ.
Cheers, guys, all the best.
And if you want to find us, we're going to say it again. Just go onto the internet, you either Google 6CWF, or you go on to 606v2.com, and you find us in a little subsection there. But obviously, you all take care of yourselves. We will be back after Born in Fire. So expect it about, let me look at the calendar. Let's see, we'll probably be recording this on the 25th, 26th of November.
Yeah, it'd be something like that. We might do some end of the year awards or something.
Oh, that will be a fun one. That definitely. But anyways, everyone, you take care of yourselves, and goodbye.